This is Mountaineers Insider.
One of the most picturesque settings in all of college football brings us to the high country of Boone, North Carolina.
The App State Mountaineers are going dancing!
Ball down, State puts it in the air.
Got it! Got it! Got it!
To send the student section to its feet.
And now to your hosts, Dave Thomas and Matt Present.
Welcome to another episode of the Mountaineer Insider on Skyline Sky Best and WATA. I'm Dave Thomas, Regional Operations Manager for Curtis Media and WATA Radio in Boone. Here with the voice of App State men's basketball, Matt Present. Episode 3, Matt, it's going to be an exciting one. We're talking wrestling at App State.
And what a tremendous program the wrestling is here at App State. 7 guys last season making it to the NCAAs. This year it's 5, and we're going to get a chance to talk to 2 of them here coming up on the show.
Talk about what brought them here and how much their head coach, John Mark Bentley, had to do with that. A terrific high school wrestler, and then went on to represent the state of North Carolina in wrestling himself.
Yeah, competed at North Carolina and was the ACC Wrestler of the Year back in his heyday. And we heard he can still wrestle a bit as a coach, but he's taken this program, really elevated it. But what's so interesting, too, is he's got a lot of talent, but they come in as freshmen, get humbled a little bit, get challenged, and then still are able to get to that exceedingly high height later on in their career.
We're going to take you inside the culture of App State wrestler. That's coming up on today's Mountaineer Insider.
Let's go!
To a place where you can grow.
A place to be heard.
And take a closer look.
A place where you can crush it.
And push yourself.
A place to find your voice.
This place rocks. And rolls.
A place where you can get out.
Wow!
A place you'll never forget.
So where is this place? Let me show you.
Welcome back to the Mountaineer Insider on Skyline Sky Best and WATA. I'm Dave Thomas, along with Matt Present, the voice of men's basketball here at App State. We're joined by Thomas Flitz, wrestler, or I guess now say former wrestler from App State, as the career is coming to an end. And we'll talk about your career and your time here at App State in just a few minutes. But let's go back to when you first started wrestling. What drew you into the sport?
So whenever I was in middle school, all my friends started wrestling in 6th grade. And so I was like, oh, that's really cool. But then my mom and dad promised me that if I make straight A's, then I get a cell phone. So I decided not to wrestle in 6th grade. So I waited, and I ended up getting straight A's, and actually like one of the only times I ever got straight A's in like grade school. And so I got my cell phone. It was like this little Go phone thing. It was awful. It was great though. And then in 7th grade, I joined all my friends to wrestle. So just got into it like that. All my friends started doing it, so I was like, sure, I'll try.
So in that year that goes by, when you have straight A's, you got your cell phone, but your friends are wrestling, what did you glean from their experience that you said a year later, okay, I still really want to do this?
Yeah, all my friends were just like, Thomas, you got to wrestle. And then all the coaches like saw I guess my stature. I guess I was just like bigger than other kids, or like, I don't know. But they were all like trying to urge me to wrestle and everything like that. So it was just that, I guess the peer pressure really got me into it.
Were there other sports that you played growing up, or was wrestling kind of the one?
Yeah, so before I wrestled, I played football up until 8th grade. So I played football from like 3rd or 2nd grade up until 8th grade. And then whenever I got into high school, I was just like, okay, I'm better at wrestling. I like wrestling more. I'm just going to stick with that and focus on that.
Now, I've heard a lot of former football players and other athletes, when they get into wrestling, talk about the degree of difficulty. So for you as a former player coming in because your friends wanted you to get into it, What were your early impressions of how tough this sport actually was?
Oh, it was so much harder. Just like the fact that the conditioning was way harder. And then if you think about it, you're like actually trying to impose your will on somebody else that's trying to do the same to you. You know, like they're trying to, like, you're trying to force them to do something that they don't want to do, and they're trying to force you something that you're trying not to let them do. So yeah, so much more difficult. The conditioning and everything, it was so hard. And then like the mindset that you have to have, the discipline you have to have, to lose weight, and then to like actually actually be good. Like the discipline and the mindset is so much different.
I want to get into it later on, the cutting weight, the nutrition, the workouts, and everything that goes into it. But you talk about just the difficulty of the endurance of it.
Yeah.
Do you have to kind of manage and conserve energy and wait a little bit to not kind of go in and you know, start too strong and not be able to continue that intensity as the match goes on?
Yeah, so at App, we like preach that like, everybody talks about how our endurance and our energy is so high late in a match. It's not because we like hold off at the beginning, it's just because we train that way. You know, we, Coach Bentley has a great way of training us and like getting us ready for big matches or just like high endurance matches. So whenever we're in the first period, we're just as energetic or just have just as much energy as we do in the third period. It's just because of how hard we train and how hard we go in the room. We have great drill partners and everything. It's kind of incredible because you watch other teams, they're high energy in the first and it's kind of like they're starting to fade a little bit in the second, and then we're all over them in the third. If you actually look at our stats, usually we're scoring a ton of points in the third compared to them.
How different were you as a collegiate wrestler versus a high school wrestler? Obviously got you on the radar of App State, but even in your early days, what did you have to learn and develop about this, the skill of wrestling that I guess got you where you are now?
Yeah, so the difference between me in high school and me in college was pretty much my mindset. That was the biggest thing, was just kind of self-belief almost. Like I think that's what held me back. You can ask probably a lot of people. That's kind of what held me back from, like, if you look at my freshman, sophomore year here, and then if you look at me in high school, like there was always like the big matches that I would just kind of fall against because I never won a state title in high school. I always got third. I got third twice in high school. So whenever I got to college, I had to figure out like a self-belief type thing in order to kind of jump levels in order to get to where I am now.
I'm interested in that because confidence is so often a product of performance and not the other way around. So you talk about the physical training of building muscle, building endurance. How do you build confidence?
Just falling back on your training, you know, like whenever I'm in the wrestling room, like I work hard, you know, and so whenever I'm working that hard, I have to believe that I'm working harder than anybody else in the country and build off of that. And also, like I've got great drill partners in the room, you know, like I went with Barrett Blakely, our 184 constantly, Will Formato, our 165. And so I train with those guys and they're great wrestlers, you know. And so whenever we're going at it, you know, it's either they're really, really close, they get a takedown, I get a takedown. Like I build confidence from that, you know what I mean? Because they're great wrestlers, and then whenever I'm competing with them, I know like, okay, I'm a great wrestler too. And then whenever I'm in the middle of like a tough match, it's like overtime or it's like the third period and I try to get like a takedown or something, you know, I'm building confidence from those things, you know, like I'm wrestling these great guys and I'm really close with them. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I can get through it.
Our guest is Thomas Flitz, outgoing App State wrestler. Let's back up a little bit. So you get into it, you discover that it's hard, but you really kind of like it. At what point, though, did you realize this could get me to college and could help with my education?
Yeah. So probably my sophomore-ish year, at the end of my sophomore year, I started going to a club in Charlotte called Dark Horse. It's a wrestling club, and so still got a great relationship with the coaches there. So I went to a national tournament, and I made it to the blood round, which is the round that you get to either All-American or you go home. So you win, you All-American, you lose, you go home. And so I got to the blood round, and I ended up losing, but I was like, oh shoot, I might be okay at this thing. And so that was whenever I was like, okay, maybe I can actually keep going with this and see where it takes me and possibly go to college. That's where my college dreams actually started coming. I started realizing them.
So what was the recruiting process then like, and how did App State get on your radar?
Yeah, so the head coach at Dark Horse, his name's Jimmy Avola. He wrestled for Coach Bentley whenever he was at Davidson. And so he had ties that way, and so he kind of talked to Coach Bentley. And then really, App State was one of the only teams that was recruiting me, us and Campbell, our rival. And so whenever I went on that visit, like, no, thank you. And then I came here, and I absolutely loved it. I actually went to a practice here one time and practiced over the summer with, or maybe, I don't remember when it was actually. But anyway, went to a practice here, and Bentley was playing Christian music in the room, and I'm a Christian, so I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. And so that kind of drew me here too. And so I sent him an email saying I loved the music that he played in the room, and I had fun at practice and enjoyed it. So that's kind of what drew me to App State too.
I noticed on your social media, because we have to stalk you to do these interviews, but your faith is important to you.
Yeah.
And for a sport like wrestling, where it's aggressive and physical, sometimes violent, how do you balance that, and how does that play into you when you're preparing to go out and wrestle?
So the violence and everything, I mean, it's just a sport, you know. I feel like if Jesus was out there wrestling, he'd be just as aggressive, you know what I mean? And so just how that helps me prepare, you know, like I'll go out there and like if it's a big match or anything like that, I know that God's with me no matter what, and win, lose, or draw, I'm gonna give him glory, and he's gonna love me no matter what. So that plays a huge role in the confidence that I was talking about earlier too, and how I prepare for matches, and yeah.
So you commit to App State, you get here as a freshman. Obviously you now, as a graduating senior, have some perspective, but what were the challenges to go from someone who was 51-4 in high school to like, oh man, there are a lot of these type of talented wrestlers here that I've got to go against?
Yeah, so everybody that I talked to in high school, or like coaches wise, they were all talking to me about, hey, whenever you get to college, you're not going to have the immediate success that you had at the end of your high school career. There's all these guys that you are going to be wrestling, they're state champs as well. They're just as good, if not better, than you were coming out of high school. And I mean, I wasn't, as I told you, I wasn't highly recruited out of high school, so I had to like come to the realization that like, okay, whenever I get here, I'm not going to be winning right off the bat. You know, I'm going to have to earn my spot. I'm going to have to dedicate myself and become a great wrestler in order to get in the lineup, in order to compete with these guys. So it wasn't like a huge change, because I already had that mindset coming through. Like, I'm going to have to work my butt off in order to get to where I want to be, and all these guys are going to have to do the same.
What was the initial year like, though, from going and being a guy who's a star in high school to maybe a more of a backseat role, kind of learning the ropes? What was your approach inside practice and at matches and at events, how you tried to glean from the older guys and the guys you were learning from?
Yeah, so whenever I was drilling or practicing, I'd always try to grab those older guys, you know, to learn from them. And then whenever I went with them, I made sure to give it my all, you know, to give them a fit every single time, to annoy them as much as possible, because not only is that going to make me better to try to beat them, it's also going to make them better in the long run, you know what I mean? Because if I'm trying my best and I'm giving them a fit, they're going to have to adapt and overcome and everything too. So that was kind of my approach to it. I was just trying to grab those older guys, grab those guys that are better than me, whether I get the crap beat out of me or not. I'm going to give it my all and try to learn and grow from them.
He is outgoing App State wrestler Thomas Flitz, and we'll continue our conversation with him coming up next on the Mountaineer Insider on Skyline Sky Best and WATA.
The Student YOSEF Club is a student booster organization that strives to support student athletes, maintain an electric game day atmosphere, and fuel the Mountaineer spirit. For just $25 a year or $85 for a 4-year plan, members receive an exclusive t-shirt, early entry into football and basketball games, and reserved midfield seating. Visit MountaineersAthleticFund.com today to sign up and become the next loyal member of the Student YOSEF Club.
Welcome back to the Mountaineer Insider on Skyline Sky Best and WATA. I'm Dave Thomas with the voice of App State men's basketball, Matt Present, and our guest today is outgoing wrestler Thomas Flitz. Now, Thomas, you've referenced your coach a couple of times. He was a pretty prestigious wrestler in his own right.
Yeah, he was.
How much did that, if at all, impacted you when you started looking into him, what he was able to do when he was on the mat?
Yeah, I mean, he's like a North Carolina legend. You know what I mean? And so that definitely impacted me because he's done it in North Carolina, and he kind of showed that like North Carolina guys can do great things in college and in high school. So that kind of like helped me make a decision as well. And then also whenever he's in the room, like he still beats us up. You know, he's still like going at it and still one of the best wrestlers in the room actually, even though he's old. He's not going to see this, right?
I think he's probably going to at least hear it.
Oh, great.
At least you're outgoing though, right?
Yeah. I'm not going back, so that's good.
Before the break, you talked about challenging the older guys when you were a freshman, and the fact that challenging them was not only helping you, but helping them and helping the team as a whole. I'm interested in the dynamic of what is an individual but also a team sport. And when you're on the mat, are you making calculated decisions about risk-reward in terms of how it helps the team in addition to you in your own individual match?
Oh, yeah. So whenever I'm wrestling, so I'll give you an example. So against Chattanooga, we had a really, really close match with them. And so I had a chance to get a major decision. I was working for the major decision, and I ended up not getting it. And that was a close, really, really close match. And that major decision would have given us that extra point and give us a little cushion to win that match. We ended up winning the match, but that major decision would have helped out a lot. So yeah, there's definitely these little strategic things that you're trying to do within a match to either get an extra point or not give up that extra point. You know, like whenever I'm wrestling, or whenever people are wrestling some really, really good guy, they're trying not to give up that tech fall or the major, you know what I mean? So yeah, there's definitely that tactical aspect of it whenever you're trying to get that bonus point to get the bigger win or not give up.
Are you able to see the scoring as you're wrestling? How aware of you are you of exactly where you stand when you're on the mat?
Usually the score I'm pretty aware of. It's the time that you're trying not to like stare at the time the whole time, you know, looking over at it. And the riding time is usually something that I'm not usually that aware of. I'm always just kind of like, okay, do I have enough riding time? So that's usually the thing of it. I can usually keep score kind of in your head. You're just kind of used to it at this point. You just 2 points, escape 2-1, you know what I mean? So those are the kind of things that you're usually kind of used to and know now.
In most sports, you have a position, you know, quarterback, linebacker, forward, point guard. But in wrestling, it's by your weight class. Now, in 17-18, I think you were 165. The next year, you bumped up a few pounds, went to 174. What was behind that decision? And walk us through the process of, okay, I got to pack on a little bit.
Yeah, so we had a bunch of good guys coming in. We had Michael Elliott whenever the first year I was at 74, and he was a great wrestler. So it just helped the team out more. And so he could do his thing at 65, and then I had to, you know, bulk up a little bit, you know, because I was 10 pounds less. And so putting the weight on wasn't terribly hard. Getting the mass was hard, you know, like the muscle and growing into it was pretty difficult. So I took that first year that I was at 74 was pretty tough to actually like be as strong and as big as those other guys. So yeah, that was the thing behind it was we had some great guys that would help out the lineup a lot. So me bumping up was definitely helping out the lineup a lot.
Easier though than cutting weight?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. I still don't even cut weight that much, honestly. Like the last day of nationals this year, I could weigh in at 175. Or the second day of nationals, I could weigh in at 175 because the second day you get a extra pound, and I forgot. And so I weighed in like 2 pounds under, and everybody was mad at me because they're like trying to make that weight. Like Caleb and Will are like cutting, and I'm like, oh yeah, we get an extra pound. I didn't. So I weighed in like 2 pounds under. They were mad at me. It was funny.
Thomas Flitz is our guest, outgoing wrestler from App State. Now, during your time here, obviously you've had some big wins. What stands out the most? There's got to be one that sort of rises above all the others.
Every time you beat Campbell's a good win. You know, in this past year, whenever I beat Campbell, the guy that I was wrestling, he beat me twice the year before, twice the year before in the duel and in the conference finals. This year I beat him twice in the duel and in the conference finals, and it helped us win the duel and then in the conference finals get my first championship. So that win is always going to be sticking out and special to me.
But you go from runner-up several years, and you made the NCAA tournament without winning a SoCon title.
Yeah.
But your final year to get that SoCon title, I mean, just describe the emotions in that moment.
Yeah, so at first, whenever I won it, I had to give thanks to the Lord. So I pointed up and was letting that known that I didn't, like, this win couldn't have happened without him. And then I just like came to the realization that, like, holy cow, I won, you know? And then I started crying, like I was bawling, and then giving people hugs. Like, if you ask me what happened after the ref raised my hand and like 10 minutes after, I have no idea. It was just all in a daze. It was so weird. I just know I was giving people hugs, and I think my dad ran down there at some point, and I gave him a hug, and I was just kind of crying, trying to take it all in. It was really, really cool because I've been working for that for a long time, and like you said, I've runner-up 2 years before that, and then made to the finals this year again. And yeah, it was a cool experience, really, really cool, especially the team. Like, you know, everybody's saying they're proud of me and giving me hugs. It was cool.
And you made the decision to come back this year.
Yep.
Was it a difficult decision? What did you have to weigh in that whole process?
Yeah, I think it was a pretty difficult decision for me, at least, because, you know, I wasn't planning, from my freshman year, I wasn't planning on being here for 6 years, you know? And so I was planning on being done after 5. And so I was wanting to get kind of like my life started, you know, get into coaching and everything. And then Bentley kind of called me into his office, and we had a couple meetings, and it was just, yeah, I kind of wanted to come back. You know, I never won conference, you know, I've never won a match in the NCAA tournament, so there was a bunch of things that I still wanted to accomplish that I haven't yet. And so those are some things that that I definitely thought of and made the decision to come back.
How rewarding is it now in retrospect to be able to check things like that off the list and to be able to go out on such a high note to end your career?
Oh, it's great. I like looking back. There was times whenever I was like, man, was this the right decision to come back? Like middle of the season, I was like, was this the right decision to come back? I don't know. Like, I'm starting to like doubt things and think, but now seeing the end result, I'm like, okay, it was definitely the right decision. It's awesome to come back and, you know, accomplish the goals that I've set out to accomplish since my freshman year. And they might have taken 6 years, but it is definitely rewarding and fun. Oh, that's one thing. Coach Miller, the first thing that he said to me off after I won conference, I remember this, was, took you 6 years, but we got it done. And so it was funny. That made me laugh, and yeah, it was good.
But you talk about this relationship you have with your coaches, and we can tell it's special. So for anyone out there looking at App State wrestling as a potential, you know, landing spot in their future, what do you say about the culture and this staff here?
Oh man, the culture we have as a team is incredible. You know, everybody here is like family. I mean, you can look at JonJon's last interview he had at Nationals. You know, they were asking him, "Oh, or do you want to be the face of App State?" And he goes, "I just represent the A. Like, we're so much bigger than just an A or just one face, one guy. Like, you know, we're a team, we're a family. We're so close as a team. Like I said, like, I consider everybody on this team as family. They're all my brothers. We all go through so much together, you know, like ups, downs, everything. Like, wrestling's got that funny way of like having you the highest of high one day and then the next, like the lowest of low. You know, you can be on top of the world one day and then be crushed a match later. And so it's the culture we have as a team is incredible. It's really honestly hard to describe. And then our coaches are always got our backs no matter what. It's kind of incredible here at App State.
You talk about the family and the team camaraderie, but an aspect too of that is the support you have from the fan base and varsity gym, the atmosphere in there. Describe what that means to this program.
Holy cow. There's a bunch of matches that I would not have gotten through if it wasn't for the crowd. And I'm not joking about that. Whenever I was wrestling Campbell, it was incredible because there was times whenever like I was exhausted and then I heard the roar of the crowd and I could just see him get more exhausted and I was like, okay, this is it. Like, I'm gonna win this match. And then another one, to be specific, was a few years ago whenever I was wrestling Lock Haven. I was in somewhat overtime. I was in such a tough match, and the crowd was insane. It was so loud. It was awesome, and that like. Varsity gym is another type of energy whenever you get there at a full crowd, and it's really, really awesome. Our fan base is incredible.
Well, it's been great getting to know you. Congratulations on a stellar career here.
Thank you so much.
He's Thomas Flitz, outgoing wrestler for the App State wrestling team. We'll continue on with more of the Mountaineer Insider after this on Skyline, Sky Best, and WATA.
In today's Student Athlete Spotlight, we head to the Diamond. It's Shelley Horner's 5th season as the head coach of App State softball, and there's one player that's been by her side for all 5 years. It's her catcher, Baylee Morton. Morton is emblematic of growth in this program, both personally and for the team as a whole. She connects past with present. Here's her view from behind the plate.
I committed to the staff before Coach Horner, but, things happen, coaches change all the time, but, I trusted, the staff here at App State that they would make a good hire, and here I am 5 years later. I started playing t-ball actually when I was probably like 3 or 4. My parents put my brother and I into sports at a very young age. They wanted us to learn leadership super early, so I started playing t-ball when I was about 3 or 4, ever since I could walk. I committed my sophomore year. There was a camp that I was supposed to go and pitch, and at the last second I called the director of camp, and I was like, hey, can I catch? I have my catching stuff, so I switched to catching the night before the camp. When I came here, I felt supported already. I felt like it was home. I really like how it's like a college town atmosphere. Like everybody here, you walk down the street and they're got their App State shirts on, so I really liked that aspect of it.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That was a good one, nice. Right in the gap, right in the gap. Coach Horner, she comes in and you're like, okay, she just has this passion and drive about her that, is different. When I first started, I was a freshman, I was super timid, and she was on my back a lot, honestly. I came in probably in not the best shape, I'd never played collegiately, didn't really know what to expect, and I really had to grit and grind through the first season. She saw my potential as catcher, she saw my potential as a hitter, and she really never gave up on me.
The players that wanted to elevate the program, like a Baylee Morton, she's still here for her 5th year. She came back to play that 5th year. She was here when I got here as a freshman. Didn't know who I was, but she wanted to change the program.
I was a freshman out there with a team that had never had Coach Horner as their coach. I think it helped me that I came in with her first year, because she's been able to see how I've grown as a player and as a person.
Morton connects, it's in the gap, and coming in to score is Kelly White. A walk-off for Baylee Morton with 2 outs.
It's been so much fun and so rewarding, and if I had another year, why not just come back? Coach Horner had asked us here or there, and it was, from the first time she asked me, I was like, yes, I want to come back.
I love Baylee. She is not only a great catcher, but she's just a really great person. I've just seen really a huge transformation in her. One, physically with her, her play, but also just mentally and as a person. And so she's, brought that on to the younger players year in and year out.
Hey, on 3, 1, 2, 3. It's been a challenge and something different, playing with different people that I've never played with. Coming in with this young team that is very, very talented, it's been a challenge for me. I've had to kind of step up more, and I have to make sure that things, get done, and that's really not been my role before. I feel like that my role has been, on the field being a leader, but now I've had to take over and be like, okay, make sure the equipment gets set up, this gets set up. Now that I am a 5th year senior, now we're talking about the future, and it's nice to have a coach that doesn't only care about you as an athlete, she cares about me personally and what I'm gonna do. She really is one of the, the best things that has happened to me, not only at App State, but in my life.
Serving as the primary scholarship fund of App State Athletics, the YOSEF Club supports Mountaineer student athletes through scholarships, athletics facility enhancements, and programmatic needs support. Members enjoy access to priority game day parking and season ticket locations, exclusive access to road trips and postseason appearances, and most importantly, the opportunity to invest in the next generation of Mountaineers. Visit MountaineersAthleticFund.com to make your championship investment by joining the YOSEF Club today.
Welcome back to the Mountaineer Insider on Skyline Sky Best and WATA. I'm Dave Thomas, along with Matt Present, the voice of App State men's basketball. We're continuing our conversation talking wrestling. Jonathan Millner, or JonJon as a lot of people call you. We'll let you decide what you want to be called there. But thanks for joining us, first of all. Congratulations, a second All-American. We'll get into that in a little bit too, because there's a lot around that. But I want to talk about when you were little JonJon. How did you first get into wrestling?
Yeah, that's a great question. First of all, thank you guys for having me here. Means a lot. But I didn't start wrestling until my freshman year of high school, believe it or not. And the reason I kind of did that is because, our brother was a good football player, ended up going to college, but, grades didn't work out for him. But yeah, I just didn't want to be associated with that. So I was like, hey, I think I'm a wrestle and do my own thing. So yeah, nobody in my family really was associated with wrestling, which is, in the wrestling world, it's kind of strange because, if you wrestle, you force your kids to wrestle, and everybody's been wrestling since they were little. But, I kind of just fell in love with how competitive it is, how personal it is, and then, all the work you got to do to be successful at it. So.
Were there other sports that you did play at a younger age?
Yeah. So, like I said, my brother was a good football player, so I was always forced to play with him. So growing up, we had like a deal, like I would play football with him, and then he would play like, with toys or cars, whatever, because he's my older brother. And that was kind of like how I started playing football. And then, as I got into high school, he was a senior, I was a freshman, and I was on the football team, and I was like, just basically kind of following in his footsteps. And if anybody tell you, I'm a rebel kind of a little bit. I don't like to follow anything really, so that's kind of what made me go to wrestling.
So you make the transition from football to wrestling, and football's a physical sport, but you talked about wrestling being more personal. Walk us through the first couple of days when you're into it, still learning the ropes. Was it challenging for you to sort of make this adjustment, and when did you decide, this is a sport I really want to pursue? Yeah,
wrestling's challenging. I mean, nobody starts out being good at wrestling. That's the beauty of it. Nobody's naturally, just a great wrestler. You got athletic ability, but it only gets you so far in wrestling. And that's the great thing about it. And I think I realized that too, is like, you can be, you play football, you can be really talented and you can get by and be really good at it. But wrestling, that'll only get you to a certain level, and then you got to put all the work in to be extraordinarily good. And then sometimes that doesn't even happen. I think you can do everything right in this sport and still never reach close to what you want to do. And I think that's the beauty of it, and that's what makes it, so challenging, so personal. You lose to somebody that's, same size as you, you can't blame anybody else. There's no teammates there to kind of help you out. You face those problems on your own. And I just thought I related it to it, I guess, subconsciously. Like, that's just the way life is. A lot of your problems, you got to face them kind of head on, and I think that's what wrestling is.
And I think part of what you're getting at in terms of talking about natural talent only gets you so far is the mental side of it. How have you gone about developing that side and gaining confidence and going into matches with the mentality of, I'm going to win every single one?
Yeah. So, first of all, people call me delusional because even when I sucked, I knew I was going to be good even when I sucked. I would just say like, hey, these are my goals, this is what I want to accomplish. And, no matter, how bad the outcome was, I always take a positive from it. And just, I think that's the biggest thing about mental toughness is being optimistic, and then, being realistic in what you need to accomplish and what you need to fix. I think mistakes are great. Mistakes help you, close that learning curve, as long as you can be realistic and, relate and self-actualize what you need to fix, and then, not giving up on your goals. That's the biggest thing. Like, mental toughness is not giving up on yourself and then believing that you can do it, and then finding a way to make it realistically happen. I think that's a lot of young guys and people my age we don't grasp that.
App State two-time All-American wrestler JonJon Millner is our guest. You start your freshman year, you finish high school a state champion. When you started, you said you realized I'm going to be good, but was that ever on the horizon of your thought process? I'm going to do this.
Yeah, surprisingly, yeah, it was. Like I said, part delusional, but I just kind of knew, like, I don't like looking at people's success and saying, why not me? So I just thought I could do whatever it took to get there and make those things happen. And I couldn't have done it without having a great support staff and great coaches to believe in me too. they always helped me. They never said, oh no, you can't do this, you know, put me down. You know, if I thought I could do it, they would always say, that's what you think, you go and try for it. But, you know, and even then, they didn't shut me down. You know, they saw growth, they saw potential and what I could do. And like I said, if I didn't have people that also believed in me halfway, you know, it might not have been as much as I believed in myself, but just then, you know, it kind of helps and promotes growth. So you definitely got to have, you know, good coaches, and that's part of the reason I chose Appalachian State to come here. Is John Mark Bentley's great developmental coach and just his track record and stuff that he's done.
You talk about the growth. Take us through everything that goes into it behind the scenes, from the training, the weights, the exercise, the nutrition. Like, what goes into the growth that you then see on the mat?
College or high school? College, yeah. So college is, you know, it's a pretty demanding schedule. But you know, if you want to be better than average, you got to do more than average. So, you know, I always try to make sure I put in a little bit of extra work just on myself. You know, working on areas that I need, and you know, it might not be a coach involved, or it might be wrestling with a coach. But you know, I think if I don't do, you know, 2 or 3 extra wrestling workouts on top of everything else, then I think that week is a setback from what we could have done. You know, developing my skills, you know, going through one practice isn't going to fix all your mistakes, you know, especially when you got a team around you. You know, you got to be really invested in yourself and know what you got to work on and work on it on your own.
We've learned, especially in wrestling, your first year at the collegiate level can be a little bumpy and maybe not as much action as you want it to be in a starting lineup or whatever. Walk us through what your freshman year was like here at App State and how that helped you turn into who you are now.
Yeah, so my freshman year when I first got here, I was pretty bad. But we had Matt Zawistowski at 149, and I thought that would be a great person for me to learn from and wrestle with. So I wrestled with him a lot, and he always got the better of me, you know. But still, I learned a lot from just, you know, Matt doesn't talk a lot, you know, but he doesn't really show a lot of stuff. But I learned just, you know, wrestling with him and just kind of picking up on things and then developing. But yeah, you know, redshirting and going to those open tournaments, you know, it can be tough because you're not with the team 24/7. You know, it's more individual. And then actually, you know, in the spring, towards the end of the season, I actually tried to quit the wrestling team, and Coach Bentley didn't let me. So, and then that next summer, that's when we saw a lot of growth, you know, and developing. I think you get through that first year, and then I think that summer is when you really start to grow. So once you get past your freshman year, I think it's uphill from there.
You talk about correcting mistakes and going through and working with sparring partners. Do you watch film? Is that a part of how you learn and get better?
I honestly don't like to watch a whole lot of film. You know, I kind of, like I said, I'm pretty good at self-actualizing and realizing what I did wrong and being open-minded to it, you know. But I can be very stubborn sometimes. So that was one of the mistakes I corrected my freshman year. Was, you know, being able to, you know, not be so stubborn and listen to advice and, you know, at least listen to it. Sometimes you don't always take 100% of advice, you know, but, you know, at least listening and thinking back on yourself and reflecting. I think that's part of the biggest thing that I do I do really well of. Is reflecting and looking back and knowing what I did wrong and how I can fix it. And then, you know, once you put that plan into place, I think you can work towards your goals.
Even in a match, when maybe you make a misstep or a mismove, is that playing in your head, oh, I can't do that again, I need to do this differently? Or what's the process like when things aren't going well for you and you're trying to turn the tide?
Yeah, so just kind of one thing, like it's just kind of like a mental tip that I kind of just tell myself. So in my career, there's been a lot of matches I went down, you know, 6-0, 8-0, or whatever. But, you know, I just tell myself, I mean, no matter what happens, there's no way I can lose. As long as I don't get pinned, there's no way I can lose. You know, I can always, you know, put somebody to their back and pin them in the match and come back. And then, but like I said, that's part of being optimistic. You know, that goes to, I think that falls right along with mental toughness really well. So just knowing that, you know I can score a lot of points on top and I can put points up on the board. So I know that I'm dangerous there and I'm capable of coming back. So. But yeah, as far as, you know, stuff happening that, you know, I probably can't control or realize that was a mistake, happens a lot. So honestly, like this past at Nationals, I think it was against the Arizona State kid, it was a rematch. And right off the bat, he hit a beautiful inside trip, and I was like, man, that was nice. And I was like, okay, don't go any back, don't go any back. Because I know, like, you know, I wrestled the guy twice, he beat me, and every time he beat me, he got up to a quick lead and then kind of, you know, played his cards right and wrestled smart there. So I knew if I didn't go to my back, you know, I could win that match. But yeah, you know, if something nice happens, I'm like, man, that was cool. So, but that's what it's about too. You know, that makes it fun. You know, just putting on a show for the fans, and you know, whether it's me getting thrown to somebody else, they're always going to watch it again. So.
He's two-time All-American App State wrestler JonJon Millner. He's our guest, and we'll continue talking wrestling on the Mountaineer Insider on Skyline Sky Best and WATA.
What brings us to mountains? Is it the possibilities that await us at the top? Are we looking forward to how the challenge will mold us, transform us? Maybe the mountain is inside all of us. After all, we are mountaineers. Appalachian State University.
Welcome back to the Mountaineer Insider on Skyline, Sky Best, and WATA. I'm Dave Thomas, and I'm with Matt Present. We're talking wrestling with two-time All-American JonJon Millner as our guest. You talked a little bit about Coach Bentley being one of the reasons you came here. What was the transition from high school to college like as far as the recruiting process for you? Tell us about how that went for you, because everybody's story seems to be a little bit different.
Yeah, so I wasn't really highly recruited coming out of high school. I think I was going to go to Virginia Tech, and then the coach there ended up leaving and going to Iowa State. So I was like, all right, I'll take a visit up to App State and see one of my buddies. He was on the team here when we wrestled club together. So I come up here to see him. You know, didn't have any intentions to come in App. I just came up here to see him and, you know, see what the school had to offer. Then, you know, we go out to eat, and Coach Bentley says grace before we eat. And I was like, oh, man, that's pretty cool. And then I started to pay attention to, you know, just the way that he acts and, you know, the team as a culture and stuff like that. And then I started to realize, you know, in comparing the difference of teams and schools and culture and coachings and stuff like that, you know, I realized, you know, App State was probably a place that I needed to be. You know, I felt like I could be myself, and if you're yourself at a school, you can grow more. And I didn't want to get away from my Christian values and my beliefs, so that's why I ended up choosing App. And then, you know, as far as wrestling standpoint, that was just personal how I felt. But wrestling standpoint, you know, what Coach Billinger did with, you know, Austin Trotman and Denzel Dejanette, you know, just, you know, North Carolina guys that he, you know, grew up to be, you know, All-Americans and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty neat. I thought, you know, the same thing could happen with me.
What else have you enjoyed about your time here in Boone, from the community and the family atmosphere and just things that you enjoy doing away from wrestling?
Well, I guess my freshman year is when I actually had time to do stuff. But we, you know, just hanging out with the team, really. You know, just the simple things, the simple pleasures of life, really. You know, it's what I like to do the most. I don't do a whole lot of stuff, and you know, my favorite thing to do is probably go to the movies. And I'm a big movie buff. Thomas is too, actually. So me and Thomas talk a lot of movies whenever we travel. But that and just, you know, just the atmosphere, just looking at the scenery, drinking coffee. It's a lot of local coffee shops here. I love coffee. So
movies, is that what you're watching when you're traveling, when you're on a road trip? Some guys are listening to music. Is movies your go-to to sort of escape and kind of a release for you?
Yeah, I mean, just to kill time. You know, a lot of times, you know, we're traveling, you know, just sitting there. A lot of times, if you're not thinking about what you got to do, you know, it's a little bit easier to go out there and just compete. So, you know, at NCAAs, you got a little bit more free time in between sessions. So, you know, I brought my PlayStation and, you know, I just cut on HBO Max. I think last NCAAs, that's when Justice League came out. It was like a 3-hour movie. It took me 2 days to finish it. So I watched that, and then we watched, you know, just, you know, comedy movies and stuff like that. And, you know, just hanging out with the team, watching movies, just killing time. That's about it. It's pretty fun.
So you talk about NCAAs, and you've gone and received All-American recognition the last 2 years, and most recently in Detroit just a couple of weeks ago. Take me inside of that experience and that match that secured All-American standing. Like, what is that? What are the emotions and the energy that surround a match like that for you?
Yeah, so when I wrestle, I really want to separate myself from emotions, because, you know, emotions can vary and go up and down. So I like to just, you know, try to stay the same and compete the same. That way I know preparation the same, mindset's the same. I know I can do what I got to do. But, you know, wrestling Iowa guy, and a lot of Iowa fans there. And I think on the mat over, the 33 match, it was like the semifinal match. So all the Iowa fans were in that little corner, and they were screaming and stuff like that. And that's pretty fun. I like it when the crowd gets into it, whether they're cheering against me or for me. It just makes it more fun. It's that college, you know, competition atmosphere, which, I mean, any true competitor loves that. But yeah, so after the match, you know, he was heartbroken. You know, he had been in that round 3 times and never made it out. But so I mean, he was devastated. But that made me happy. So that's just part of wrestling. You know, it's really personal. You know, you wanna try to dominate your opponent and break them mentally and physically. And, you know, once you achieve that, you know you want a match. So that made me happy. And then, you know, doing it again too. That way, you know, people wouldn't say, oh, it was because of the COVID year and this, that, and the third. So I really wanted to, you know, prove a point. And because App State gets, we don't get a whole lot of credit for what we are and the talent that we have in the rankings and publicity. So I wanted to prove that and make that a point of emphasis for not just for me, but for my teammates as well.
Doing what Matt and I do for a living, when you go to an NCAA event, you can tell it's different. It's different level, it feels different. But as a competitor, it's got to be even more so for you. What did you learn from year 1 to year 2 that may have helped you along the way?
Yeah, so honestly, when I walk into an arena, just kind of how I distance myself from it is, you know, I really don't care where it's at. The mats are the same, the dimensions are the same, you know, same rules, same regulations. You got the same coach in your corner, and you got a ref. So as long as you don't play into the hype, and you know, this is what I tell everybody on my team. I told Caleb, it's his first year here, I was like, everything's the same. I was like, the wrestling will be easier, but it's just the hype around everything else that'll make it hard, you know. Just controlling those factors that you can control. All that outside stuff you can't control, and if you play into it, then you lose focus of what you're there for. Because it's not really a fun trip, and it's not a fun tournament at all. You know, it's pretty grueling, and you know, you weigh in 3 days, you wrestle. I wrestled 8 matches over the course of 3 days. You know, it's brutal on your body. Like, you feel awful on the 3rd day. So, you know, I just tell everybody going into it, you know, it's not for fun. Like, you know, nothing is fun about this. The only thing fun about it is the glory you get after, that nobody can ever take away from you. And you know, you just got to walk into it with that mindset. And I think, you know, if you don't got that mindset, then you're in a different place. You know, you're in the arena with the rest of the fans, and you're riding that emotional roller coaster. So, but that's about it as far as competitor-wise.
What do you do for your body when you have a stretch like that to be able to be your best at the end?
I tell my body that I'm gonna do it, and if it doesn't listen, I don't care. That's as simple as
mind
that.
over matter.
Yeah, that's what I do. You know, people always ask me, say, how you feel? And I just say, it's as good as I'm gonna feel. You know, nothing you can do about it now. You know, you just gotta, you know, persevere and overcome and just be tough. You know, it's part of the sport. You know, tell your body you're gonna do it, and if it doesn't do it, break it.
You talk about wanting to wrestle in front of fans, whether they're for you or against you. Here in Varsity Gym, they're certainly in your corner. What is that atmosphere like, and what has it meant to you to have that support over your years here at App State?
Yeah, it's meant a lot, and it's definitely grown, I can tell. So I think the past two home events started to notice a little more. Normally I don't pay attention, but it was the past 2 times. It's the Campbell match and then conference. It's like before I even went out there, like they were like in an uproar, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. They must know I'm gonna win. So, but it's definitely a huge advantage for us. You know, nobody wants to wrestle us in Varsity Gym because our fans are so into the match and so intense, and you know, it definitely helps me out. So, makes me feel better about myself too.
Last question for you. Let's go back to the beginning of this conversation. You got into wrestling to get out from under your brother's shadow. You had to play football with him. He would play cars with you. When you got into wrestling, even now, does Big Brother wrestle with you?
No, he's got really bad shoulders. He tried to in high school, and then he quickly found out how bad wrestling is on your shoulders. As anybody that wrestles will tell you. So, but no, he's, you know, and I love it when he calls me up and talks, because he doesn't know anything about wrestling. So he's just like a complete fan, and he's just into it, and you know, he's hilarious. So he's always great to have in the crowd, and he's funny, and he's into it no matter what.
No, congratulations on a terrific success so far, 2-time All-American. That's something, as you said, no one can ever take away from you. Thank you for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
He's JonJon Millner, 2-time All-American wrestler here at App State. And we'll continue on and wrap things up on the Mountaineer Insider after this on Skyline, Sky Best, and WATA.
Let's go! To a place where you can grow.
A place to be heard.
And take a closer look.
A place where you can crush it.
And push yourself.
A place to find your voice.
This place rocks. And rolls.
A place where you can get out.
Wow!
A place you'll never forget.
So where is this place? Let me show you.
Welcome back to the Mountaineer Insider as we wrap up episode number 3. I'm Dave Thomas along with Matt Present. Today's topic's been wrestling, and it's been more fun than I even thought that it could be. I knew it was going to be fun coming in, but both of our guests were outstanding.
They were, and certainly it's really cool to be in the presence of an All-American and 2 NCAA tournament qualifiers, but to listen to their mentalities of mind over matter and how much hard work they put in, but how much is also up here in terms of what dictates their success.
And the challenges and the things they had to overcome to get where they were. It was different for both, but still very challenging in their own right. So we appreciate those fellows joining us here on the Mountaineer Insider. There's been a lot of success around App State athletics so far this year as we transition here.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's not just been the results on the mat, the court, the field, but also it's been so terrific to see all the fans back at the various arenas here at App State. Football, basketball, and baseball have all set attendance records this year. And we get a chance to keep building. Baseball and softball are both home this weekend, and we certainly hope to see you folks out there over the course of the next few days.
Stay up to date on all the schedules and your favorite teams at appstatesports.com. And join us next week for the Mountaineer Insider.